What is up, YouTube? Welcome back to the RiftGuides WildRift video. I'm Kirks, your favorite rank 1 intern. We're back with the tier list. Not only this, we also have codes hidden in this video, and we have builds on our website. If you're already a Patreon member, check out the website. If you want to become a Patreon member, you can also check it out if you want to. We update it frequently, we will add free sections. There's many things that are work in progress, so keep that in mind and just enjoy your time with WildRift. So let's start with the tier list. For the Baron tier list, we have Yone as the pick of the patch in the highest tier possible. There are a few new approaches to the Baron lane and also things like Heartsteel Fiora that makes her very much stronger than people believe she is, and other picks that are so annoying to face. For the current Baron lane meta, it's more about the baby Skarner control. If you get the control over baby Skarner, you most likely snowball during the early game, and the only way to stop you is either your champion being very bad or the enemy jungler saying hello to you. The Riven rework is coming in very soon as well, so you best brace yourself for some crazy action. For the buffs about Kayle, these are completely meaningless in the grand scheme of things. Doesn't really change anything, it's not enough, she doesn't deal any damage, so anyone with just plated steel caps or just a ruby crystal will dive you on level 5, and you will never have control over baby Skarner. So anyone running Demolish into you just gets bazillions of gold, completely outpaces you, and you won't even outscale them because, well, your champion quite literally just dies to air. Also, I'm not including a few picks like Kalista top here because I don't want to destroy your day completely, so there are a lot of picks that I'll not be listing, but I'll just briefly talk about them. But if you want LP, just pick Yone top. For the tank department, we have Volibear as one of the most crazy champions you can think of. This champion in the Baron lane is an absolute demon king, especially with the power of Divine Sundra and his second ability. Garen just received a buff on an ability that many people failed to use properly, so he is a lot better as well, but he wasn't bad in the first place. It just depends on the player style or the playstyle of the person playing him, because depending on what items you build, you dealt enough damage, you just instantly one-tap somebody, and that is the thing that most Garen players don't do properly. That is hyper-focusing on the Heartsteel Dream and completely neglect that you actually have quite the decent 80 scalings to kill people. Like, for example, your first ability into your ult ignite combo is a very fail-safe way of killing people the moment they're like below 60% on level 5. With that done, let's hop over to the jungle department. Okay, you see a lot of champions in the S tier, they're all very good champions depending on the context, but here are a few more things that we need to tackle for a second. Lilia, Viego, Evelynn, Master Yi, Lee Sin, Hecarim, Xin Zhao. Like, these champions are crazy. If you want to gain elo, just pick any of them. All the other champions in the S tier are by no means bad, but they're less good, and that's what you have to keep in mind. They're not as powerful, but they're still very good compared to, for example, their A tier peers. If you want to put it into context, Fiddlesticks is a very crazy pick, but he might get out snowballed by other champions, but the moment teamfight comes around the corner, he's absolutely crazy. Shyvana takes time to scale up and is more of a solo queue pick than it is in a duo queue environment. Morgana still performed way better than other champions in the B tier, but she's by no means a very powerful pick. So again, if you want to climb in the most consistent way, you're better off just going for strict S tier champions, because that is going to provide you with the best results depending on the context. For the tank tier, the same applies. You have Volibear as the most broken champion because you can just dive so easily, and all the other champions in the S tier you can put also Nunu and Jarvan into the carry tier. They also perform very well. So these champions are performing very well and are very good. So if you want to play a tank, pick any of these tanks. Don't forget, the people in the the champions in the tank tier are not matched with the champions in the carry tier in terms of placements. They're just the currently available tanks rated within themselves or rated among themselves. Next up, we have the mages, and here we can make it relatively short. Pick Aurelion Sol, pick Kassadin, pick Twisted Fate, pick Vladimir. All of these champions, beyond broken, giga elo inflating without the Twisted Fate, because he at least requires some macro, and well, Vladimir requires a few button inputs. But all these champions are very broken, hyper-scaling champions that come online very early on and just dominate the map and dominate the WildRift meta in mid lane. Both Lux and Zoe are more like one-trick champions, yet very powerful and annoying to deal with. Syndra requires your jungle to be actually human, because then this champion is very annoying to deal with. And Annie is a champion that does quite well into all of these champions if you use the Hexflash rune and constantly flash into their faces as a setup, and with Tibbers. Because Tibbers is a very annoying thing to face because it has, well, the first stun of your passive and then the knockup, and it makes her so annoying to deal with, and we can be quite happy that we don't see many Annies nowadays. So yeah, just consider yourself lucky. As for the assassin tier, as I already said, we have the Kassadin very high up, and all the other champions are just way less potent. You have very flippy champions, you have less flippy champions, and if you pick an assassin, you usually want to go with the less flippiest option, which is Kassadin, to be fair. But yeah, Very broken picks. For the other tier, we can technically make a little annotation like, hey, Dr. Mundo could also be placed here, but I will not do so. So as per usual, we have champions such as Jace here, very dominant laning pick. Lucian still a very dominant laning pick, but many people fail to execute him properly because if you make a mistake, you just instantly die, and you dealing damage is a lot harder than, for example, dealing damage with Kassadin or Aurelion Sol. Yone also very annoying to face, so again, if you want to have the highest consistent elo gain with the most broken champions, you can basically pick any of the S tier champions you see here. Now let's briefly talk about AD carries, okay? So again, Lucian is probably one of the most broken solo queue champions you can ask for. The reason is, with Infinity Edge buffed, it gets quite of annoying to deal with this champion. He just does too much damage, even though Kraken was nerfed. The issue is you have very high upfront damage champions that are able to punish enemy champions consistently, and that makes them so good. The other thing we need to talk about are other champions within the S tier. Varus has multiple builds that makes him very broken. He can basically be anything he wants to be. Xayah cannot really lose lane into anything. Caitlyn is an absolute lane dominant monster that requires a certain support type or matchup to just steamroll the enemy team, and if the jungle intervenes, you basically have to AFK farm for Ians, and then yeah, you might come back into the game, but overall a very powerful pick. Tristana and Kai'Sa, terrible laning phases, but the moment you get your first item, be it Terminus or for Tristana even Infinity Edge if you want to gamble, or level 5, you finally start changing the pace. For Samira and for Draven, you want specific supports like engage supports, or Draven even functions really well with the Yuumi because, well, he's a very lane dominant champion, and Yuumi is also a very lane dominant champion, unironically, because she has base stats of an Nautilus. Ezreal doesn't really lose lane, also has a big issue dealing relevant damage. You will always see that Ezreal deals 50k damage, but he fails to kill many times, so keep that in mind. Champions in the A tier usually suffer from critical flaws like needing too many items, needing too many conditions to be basically fulfilled, or just don't do enough. For example, Jhin feels very bad right now. Sivir requires items and has very bad laning phase, from my opinion. Nyla is a S tier counter pick, you would never blind pick her. Misfortune has a decent laning phase, but dies to air. Zeri needs too many items and ultimate. Ashe feels very off unless you have specific drafts. Kalista can't play into most of the champions in the game due to how the game functions right now, but if you get a good Kalista game, it feels very, very powerful. And Vayne and Twitch really do nothing without a Lulu, so I don't really know why they even nerfed Twitch again, but yeah, it's right games. For the mage tier, if you want the highest consistent, well, income in LP, probably just play Ziggs and throw around some bombs. Your lane has gotten a lot weaker, but your scaling has gotten a lot better. And for the other champions, pick any of these champions depending on the context. I've talked about this many times before, so just feel free to lock them in and rather stay away from champions in the A tier. For the support champions, we basically have the same again, because rarely anything changes ever with the exceptions of a few picks. We have Nautilus as the best engage support across all the other champions, with Set being probably the weakest among these supports. Rakan's can still go full damage and one-tap you, and all of these champions here in solo queue are very unbalanced. In the A tier, you have more competitive-oriented picks with Gragas and Galio, and the B tier is just, I don't know, meme picks. I still can't see Blitzcrank as a good support when you have all the other champions up there that are really crazy. For the Protect tier, nothing much has changed. What you can argue though is in the A tier that Shen and Narcissus are very game dependent support champions. Nami is, from my perspective, not as powerful as she used to be. She's very powerful with Lucian, but even Lucian has better combos with, for example, a Lulu, so I think the champions in the S tier, especially with how the game plays out nowadays, are way better than the champions in the A tier. Lulu, Soraka and Yuumi are just annoying to face. Braum is probably the demon god counterpick you can probably imagine in any scenario, because this champion is really annoying to face, and whenever you face like the Braum champion, you just get immediate depression. For the carry tier, we have El Pykel Yaxon as the rotational power pick that you always wanted to have. This champion is always around the map and doesn't want to play lane, but wants to play the game. If you want to crush lane in the most consistent way, go for Karma, then afterwards you go for Senna, but only in duo queue. Lux is less consistent than Karma when it comes to stomping lane, but still very annoying because this champion also one-shots, and Ashe is a very ult-centric champion that sets up plays and has a very dominant laning phase if you want to play lane like this. Champions in the A tier feel not as powerful, and with the exception of Swain if you pair him up with a Senna. And that basically concludes today's video. Thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to check out our Patreon. More content is coming every single day. So see you soon and enjoy some WildRift.